So, ma'am, we're going live now, if that's okay. So, a very good evening to one and all present, and welcome to a brand new episode of Educator Speak by View TV by Jabalpur. This is a very special series that we curate on a weekly basis where we are joined by eminent educators and we talk about contemporary topics related to the future of education. And today we have actually gathered here to discuss as we celebrate Pride Month this month. So we're going to be talking about, teaching diversity in schools. Diversity can be of very different kinds, right? When we talk about, like, it could be diversity in terms of exposing students to gender diversity. It can be in terms of community diversity, religious diversity. And in a country like ours, where, we are a milieu of so many different communities, so many different religions, gender, I think it's important that we have this conversation and talk about that. How do we teach students? How do we expose them to diversity and make them more tolerant, make them more accepting of the various differences that we have as individuals and from the backgrounds that we come from? So today I'm joined by a very, very special guest, and I think it's really such an honor for me to be having a conversation with her, because when I was reading about her journey, she has been a student of mass media. She was working in the United Nations, and as we know, that is such a coveted organization. And there also she was running like a very interesting program where she was managing community radio stations in the tribal areas. And suddenly after that, she decided that, while I've been making impact in the United Nations, I think it's time to direct my attention towards education. And what a great decision it has been, because if you read the kind of achievements Palak ma'am has, I think it's very inspiring for a young edupreneur like myself. And I think definitely it's something that, somebody like me does look up to. She's a nationally acclaimed parenting profession. She's a director of the Little Kingdom chain of schools in Jabalpur, Madhya Pradesh. She's the director of the Kangaroo Preschool at Gwalior, Madhya Pradesh. And she's also the director of the Billabong High International School in Gwalior in Madhya Pradesh. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out the time and joining us. I think I'm really looking forward to this conversation and hearing your perspective on this topic.
I think the feeling is mutual, Kritika, and I'm so happy that somebody could think out of the box and talk about diversity. Because, up till now, I have been attending a lot of talk shows wherein we are talking about how the education system is going to go and the online and the offline mode of education. But, this is the time when we realize that education is not about books. It's about how you handle life. And this is how, and this is why we should empower the upcoming generation. So I think even I'm equally, happy and looking forward for this session.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And really, I think, usually in our audience members, we have educators and parents, and especially because of the kind of work that you have done and the proficiency that you've gained in the area of parenting counseling. I think there's so much that, everybody is going to gain from the wisdom that you share with us today. So without further ado, let's jump right into the conversation. To all my viewers who are joining me through YouTube, our social media platforms, please make sure you're sending me a lot of questions. I will be taking those questions up with ma'am during our conversation, as well as we have special giveaways that are lined up for the best question of the episode. So make sure that you send us a lot of questions. So let's jump right into this conversation. So first things first, ma'am, if we can just understand from you that why is it important for us to expose students to diversity? And with the kind of experience that you have, you're working with little ones right till, the older adolescent ones. So why expose them to diversity, and how young do you think that they should be when we start having this conversation with them?
I think that, when we look towards school education, whether we talk about pre-nursery, I think we all are aware the kind of country that we live in. We know that it's every day in and out, we are meeting people from different walks of life who have different cultures, different religion, different languages. Though on books, we appreciate it. But when you come deep down in the society, you will realize, because I've worked in the tribal areas also, And I have realized that they are more open, more of acceptance is there in their community rather than when you see to urban areas, or what we call as semi-urban areas. So when we come to such children who are neither a part of a Western culture or nor a part of the traditional approach, it becomes little difficult for the child to understand that should I go ahead with the today's scenario because my parents are going to have a problem, my family is going to have a problem with it, or do I continue the system that my family, my society has been going forward with? But I feel that we as educators, we as parents must have a perception that these children are not only a child to us or a citizen of India, but they are global denizens. We are making them global denizens, right? There are a lot of us who are attending this seminar, this, I'm very sure many of us have changed the places for our education, or we travel outside the country. So we are no more people who just stick to our native places. So when we are creating global denizens, it becomes very, very important that we make our child aware of different cultures, different religions, different societies, and with that we inculcate a feeling of respect towards each of them, you know, because the kind of perspective that we develop in a younger age is what a child carries, in the further future times. And these perspectives are very important for his or her own life, because we need to understand that when we grow up a child, we are sometime or the other, see, none of us are confirmed that for how much time are we there with our kids as an educator or as a parent. So realizing this fact, I think from day one, it's very important. No child is young, because I have been reading a lot about, early childhood nowadays, and I realize that the kind of brain speed that younger one have, after age of 2, children do not have that speed to learn. That means they understand everything that you are exposing them for. So from here, when we talk about a newborn baby, the kind of culture, the kind of atmosphere, the kind of environment, the kind of talk that goes around them influences them to make a perception in life. And this is what can help us to create, people who are, it's just not enough to say that I want my child to be a dreamer, doer, trailblazer. It's very important that we give them enough food for thought so that they can accept to new coming up things, and they can manage their foot with the new trends of the society, which, there are a lot of corrective measures that are taking place in our generation that we are trying to face. See, a generation prior, if you would see, there are a lot of, we have been talking too much about women empowerment, but now is the time when we've started talking about gender sensitivity rather than, particular gender roles. So this is the time when parents should, from the beginning, for me, I think, I feel from the day the child is born is very important day that you can make a change in your own life, and this is what will make change in the society.
Absolutely.
Until unless we have clear perception of how we want our child to be, in what kind of society would anybody like that, my girl or my boy faces, racism, or when we don't like it, how do we expect that, children coming up would like it? It's a mutual feeling, but we need to take corrective measures from now, because the generation that we have been, it's a mixture. and we've been accepting to things, and we've been trying to change things. But the upcoming generation, I think we have to give them that support so that this society is a better place to live in.
Absolutely. I think those are some wonderful opening remarks that you have made there, ma'am. And I think this perception perspective that you're talking about, I think parents, it's so important for us to realize that, this individual that you have created is not only your child or a citizen of the country, but, in a world that's so connected, you are creating global citizens. So keeping that in mind, the world is so diverse. It is important that you have to expose them to different kind of things. And I think, again, this notion pointed out very correctly. If you see the newer generation, they are very evolved. We are yet evolving. So I think we have to make that effort that we should not come in the way of their evolution process. I mean, in fact, we should encourage them to look at things from a different perspective, ask the right questions, be inquisitive, be curious, and also question things when they are probably not right. I mean, maybe we did not have the courage to do it, but in today's day and age they can do it. So why should we not give them that platform? And I don't think there's anything that we as parents or older people, older influencers in their life should feel bad about. And this will bring me to the next part of the question. I think you very beautifully articulated that how India is a very diverse country. I mean, diverse in terms of, you talk about financial status, you talk about religious backgrounds, you talk about caste, community. I mean, there are umpteen lines in India that tend to divide all of us. So because I have a lot of parents also who are joining me today, I would like to know from you that how do we sensitize children, to these various sort of diversity that exists in our society on multiple grounds? I mean, how do you do it at an institution level? How can you do it at home? If you can share some practical sort of examples that people can try, I think that would be lovely.
Kritika, I think when I said that we are creating global denizens, what do I mean actually out of it? That we need to what is the most important thing that when a child comes to a school or is being educated at home, the most important thing is the skill. It's not the books, it's the skill that we are talking about. So that is what we need to develop in our children. Attitude, ethics, these are certain things that we need to develop. And this has nothing to do with religion, language. So this makes our question more easy, that if some parent think that maybe my child may not be able to understand in such and such a language, or with such a teacher, because the teacher is of that religion. We are not sending our kids for education of a language. We are sending them for preparing them for real life, which does not ask only for books. It's more about, reality-based situations, which a child only faces when a child comes in social contact with the peers, right? So what we do is, and how I believe in doing that, it's very important for diversified people to come to a same platform and work for a same goal, being unbiased, and learn how to work collaboratively with those differences. And this is what a school does to each child. When we call them in uniforms, I think the thought behind uniforms is this, that when if somebody comes in a Mercedes and the other child comes with a scooter, it hardly makes a difference to a teacher, because for a teacher they both are equal, and it does not make any kind of difference. So how I try and do it in my schools, we have a lot of hands-on learning sessions, wherein we have children from different walks of life sitting together and doing problem solving. Those problems can be real life situations, Those problems can be a class situation, and with such things, what happens is we create such kind of situations and such kind of environments that they do not realize that somebody is from a different background, or but that's how their friendships come in role. That's how their emotional quotient gets enough strengthened to understand the word that we say, empathy. It's very easy to say this word, but until and unless we share that mutual feeling, it's not going to help. Often in my parenting workshops, I quote this, that suppose Kritika's child comes first and Palak's child comes second, would I ever send my child to Kritika's child and say that, congratulations, I'm so happy that you came first and I came second, but I will try and work hard next time and we'll compete? We never do that. We generally say, देखो वो आ गया, बच्चे ने, देखो तुमसे ज्यादा पढ़ाई की, मैंने बोला था तुमको. But does this solve the purpose?
Correct.
So these are certain things. So what I have learned out of these hands-on learning projects, that wherein we have different financial status, but that does not matter to a teacher, and it should not matter to any of the edupreneurs, or because in school we make them financial literate.
Correct.
When we talk to children, and because I am somebody who really likes to talk about financial literacy nowadays, and I have inculcated this concept from 3rd standard in my school.
Wow.
So very simple activities, like wherein I say, okay, everybody to have 3 jars. 1 jar is spending, 1 jar is saving, and 1 jar is sharing. So now anything that you spend in the regular course has to go from your spending jar. Second is your saving jar. So if you have a birthday party, you may not spend from your saving jar because that's your long-term saving. What you can do is you can do it, you can spend it from the sharing jar. Now, what is this sharing jar I'm introducing them to at the age of 8? That is something called tax, which comes as a burden to us, which is introduced as a, if you're earning, you will have to give it to the. But here is the concept when I tell them that, this is our country and we make it. So if you have the power to call yourself as an Indian, you also have your duty. It should not remain to civic books. If it remains there, then we all have read. And I'm very sure we have a lot of people who have been talking about tax as a burden and leaving the country and going to some other country. So this is a place where we tell them that religion, your religion is being a good human. You're an Indian. Here we, dilute all the differences and, inculcate a feeling of patriotism. And this is, believe me, I feel young children and school is the only place where we can make this difference.
Absolutely. I think these are such thought-provoking points. And before I go on to, actually sort of discuss what you discussed with regards to diversity, I think financial literacy, I am so amazed and I'm so happy that, somebody is talking about this. Because by the time we become financially literate, we start thinking about it in our late 20s. And that's when you sort of, start, and you realize that this is a jungle and, you don't know anything and the numbers start scaring you and these investments, SIPs, you just find it so difficult to grapple with. So I'm so happy that, you're introducing that concept to them at such a young age. And taxes, I can say this as a lawyer, there's so much of a negative connotation to it. You say tax and somebody's face would just fall.
But we need to understand why, because we were not introduced to that concept with the right perspective.
Correct. Absolutely. Just making it so positive, like from the day one, because I think definitely, and I take this from the premise that you shared in your earlier response, the fact that, when, kids are young, you can really mold them the way you want to. So when you infuse this idea to them with that positivity that, hey, don't look at it as a burden, but look at it as a fact that you're actually sharing your wealth towards the development of the country that you live in and others live in. I think that's a wonderful way to sort of, introduce them to that concept. And I think even the overarching idea that you started with initially, that is that, education, I don't think, no longer, I think it's important for us to steer away from the idea that, we saw it in that bookish learning sense. I think, today we're all really talking about, building knowledge, skills, and attitude. So,
You think you could have changed your career from a lawyer to an educationist, edupreneur, if you would have not been, educated?
yeah, absolutely. It may not have happened.
So these books are not because you studied books of law.
Correct.
But you landed up because life is not always what we ask for, but life is to make best of what is given to us and what resources we have. You must bloom wherever you are planted. I completely believe in that. So it's very important that we fill that feeling, that whatever happens. See, in life, it's not knowledge that will only suffice. I often do this activity in my workshop wherein I tell them that if A is 1 and Z is 26, calculate knowledge, calculate aptitude, and I think one more some word. It's just skipping from my mind. And you will realize that attitude, yeah, hard work. So attitude is the only thing that will score 100.
Wow.
So, even the alphabets talk about it. You have to have that perception.
Wow, I think that's a wonderful way to put it.
Yeah. If we inculcate a concept of being positive and being courageous, it's very important to be courageous. I think no parent would ever say that, I want my child to be bold. They would say, I mean, I have had, I think, more than hundreds of parenting workshops. And whenever I ask them, what do you want your child to do? I've always got an answer that either some economic unit, so, maybe a lawyer, a dentist, or or a business person, but they will never talk about that my child should be a good human. Even if some people say that वो कुछ भी बने बस अच्छा इंसान, but हम अच्छा इंसान बनने के लिए करते क्या है? बुक पढ़ाने से अगर अच्छा बन रहा होता, so आप देखेंगे कि जितने भी बड़े-बड़े क्राइम्स हुए हैं, वो बहुत लिटरेट जो मतलब जिनके पास बहुत सारी डिग्रीज होंगी उन लोगों ने किए हैं.
बिल्कुल. The corporate crimes that one sees.
Yes. So we need to understand that it's not books. It's the kind of attitude, it's the kind of courage, and it's the kind of empathy we inculcate in our kids. And that is the future of our country, and that's the future for ourselves, and I think the world.
Fantastic. I think, it's so encouraging when, we hear these sort of words, come from educators. And I always say this is the exact reason why we have put together this platform, because we want people to recognize the intent that educators have, the positive impact that they're making in the lives of the young generation. And I think, ma'am, you have proved great testimony to that fact. And, this will bring me to my next question. I mean, since we're talking about Pride Month, you did mention gender sensitivity. We know that gender is a topic which is close to a lot of youngsters' hearts. And we have also seen that when it comes to gender sensitivity, gender stereotyping, one part of it is also, the rising awareness about LGBTQ, etc. We have seen that youngsters on social media are very well aware. They are talking about it. They understand it. But somewhere we have seen that there is this hesitance that, we are not having open dinner table conversations about it. So what is your advice to those parents? How should they be dealing with these delicate issues? Because especially when you talk about adolescents, these are certain issues that, are very close to them. And in today's time, I mean, we are living in times where we should be all embracing and, all encompassing. So how should parents deal with these delicate issues? How should these conversations be dealt with at home? What would your suggestion be to all the parents who are joining us who have adolescents?
Kritika, this is, see, when we talk about gender, this becomes quite a sensitive topic. And especially to places like Jabalpur or Bhopal, or, these are towns that are not metros yet. They are still in a growing situations. So when such a situation comes in school, see, I'll be very honest, because we have not been avoiding, but we generally don't open up and talk about it. But what we do if a child is struggling, see, with kids, it's very important that you know the right kind of words that you have to use. Okay, if a parent is oriented, because see, we need to understand their life is a cycle, it's a wheel. So there's a time when we go up and there's a time when we come down. And it's similar for our kids. So when we have, an age wherein, we don't want to change, that's the time our children grow up.
Correct.
And they are seeking for change. Especially when it is gender stereotypes, I feel that, yes, acceptance has to come. But I also feel that it is not that easy in a country like India to open arms and accept to such things. But I sincerely feel that, like from school point of view, I will tell you, from preschool, I have started this aspect, though I know the kind of town that we live in, it is not acceptable. So I don't get those books published like that. But still, when I, orient the kids for a family, what is a family? So there is a new concept that I have been training my teachers and telling them that there can be two dads and a child.
Correct.
So, it comes as an acceptance to them from the beginning. But I know when this go to parents, it is not acceptable. So there are slight moves that we have started taking. But if anybody's child is struggling, we need to make sure that talking is the only way. If you stop talking, the child may land up into a very big trouble. There have been, if you see the percent raise in the percentage of suicide attempts for not accepting the gender issues. So we as a parent need to understand that we have to have a promotion of acceptance and a non-judgmental society. I know it's not easy. This will happen gradually. But like I could take a step of orienting a preschooler, saying that there can be two dads or two moms and, a baby in the family. And that is absolutely okay. It's absolutely normal. See, because we need to make them understand when you talk about things like LGBT or, such topics, you also need to orient the child that it is also biological.
Correct.
It's not that the parent has done some mistake, but because of certain superstitious beliefs or, howsoever the society has been developed, people have still been, conversing about it like that. But I also see people who have moved out of the country. A lot of Indian stories are there, if you read, where they have accepted gay couples or, So I think it's important to be non-judgmental and promote acceptance. But at the same time, I know it is not an easy task. We will all have to take baby steps towards it. But I request each and every parent that orient your kid and respect the personal choice. It is a personal choice that a child has. So earlier there was a
Correct.
problem with love marriages in the country. I think the entire thought process has gone to that it is okay if a child gets married, to opposite sex, it's fine, but at least ye na ho jaye. But we need to understand that we have certain biological issues that we all need to understand, and that is the
Correct. Correct.
reason we all land up here. It's not only
Absolutely.
it's not the you know karmas, or it's not nothing like that. It's just preference, and we need to accept and embrace this. So
Absolutely.
this is how we will move ahead in the
No, no,
society.
I think again, very critical points made there. And, it's so lovely. I mean, I think this is such a small example that you've given, but it's such a great way to sensitize students, from a young age. The fact that, when you're talking about what is a family, here you can actually address a lot of like the fact that, it's absolutely normal if tomorrow, you have a LGBT couple that's raising a child. That's absolutely normal. Second is also even gender roles. Those also can be questioned. That it's absolutely normal that your father may be at home and maybe taking care of home chores, and your mother may be working. That's also acceptable. So
That will only happen if a couple respects each other's work, and you need to
correct.
share it with your kid, that if your mom is going outside, I will manage, and doing home things are not an easy task. But as a mother, then you need to make sure that you respect the father because he's staying back, and vice versa. So that's how I think it will make a difference. Until we respect each other, it won't make a move.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, dialogue is key here. I mean, having that dialogue with, also between parents for them to lay the right foundation of how we're going to be parenting our child, dialogue between the parent and the child, where we create an open atmosphere where we can have these discussions. See, we can obviously have different opinions, we can agree to disagree, but at least we create an open environment where the child can come and express what is going on in their mind, or what is their interpretation of certain things. I think that is very, very fundamentally important. I see, ma'am, that we're running out of time, but before that, I would want to take one last question,
Absolutely.
because I feel that, this is something that you might feel very strongly about. So, like we always say, every child is different. Their capabilities, their abilities, their dreams, aspirations are different from each other. How do we equip our students to take pride in their individuality and choices? Because I think it's a very important question, especially in a country like ours where there's rat race and other things. So what is your advice to people joining us today? How do we prepare our students to make them ready to accept themselves the way they are and take pride in that and follow their dreams?
I think the first thing that parents should do is appreciate the thing. Find a way that your child is doing something right. Just find that one thing, and you have to appreciate. Make sure that if you know the weakness of your child, you also know the things that he or she is very strong on. And make sure that when you are in public, you make a point that if your child is around and people are appreciating their kids, you must put a point that you take pride in your own child. This is the feeling that we pass on to our kids. It is very important that, see, I believe that moderation is a life theory. So, and there have been a lot of tests like marshmallow test, which have proved that children with the balanced nature are high on EQ. So we need to make sure that children who can take pauses even if they are angry, children who can understand their own self, invest time in making your child understand himself or herself. And for that, you have to know you as a person. And that's the individual. Believe me, if one starts loving himself or herself, will not need other people's motivation. And you have to make sure this happens, because in India, what I have observed, that parents are more towards the critic side as the child starts growing. देखिए जब बच्चा चलना सीखता है ना, तो हम उसके लेवल पे झुकते हैं और उसका हाथ पकड़ते हैं और उसको 2 4 5 कदम खुद चलवाते हैं. तब हमें ऐसा नहीं लगता कि हम झुक रहे हैं. But when this same child becomes an adult and seeks for a help because he has the habit of you holding hand and walking, we leave. So there, that creates a lot of problem, and we start criticizing. तुम ये नहीं कर सकते, तुम बाहर रहते हो, तुम उठते नहीं हो, and that is what critics is one thing at home which will put child in depression or low on self-esteem. So we need to take a lot of care that the way you feel about your child is the same way the world will feel about your child. So keep believing in your child, and suppose कभी बच्चा आपको let down भी करता है, तो उन अच्छे times के बारे में सोचिए जब उसने आपको feel good factor दिया है, and this will come again. That with parenting there are a lot of lows, I understand that, but there are beautiful and unique highs of each child. So we need to have patience. I understand saying and doing is tough, but parenting never ends. If we have taken a choice to be a parent, I think just believe in your child, love your child with open arms, and I'm sure that your child will keep growing and glowing.
I think that's very valuable advice, ma'am, that you have shared. And again, I think some very good reflection points for all of us to introspect. First is, I think it's very important, like you said, I mean, it's important for us to discover ourselves. Once we discover ourselves and see the beauty in that process is only when we will, motivate our children to initiate their process of self-discovery, which is very important, because we should not try to make them fit in any mold. Every child is different, and we should let them grow according to what their unique abilities and capabilities are. And second, I think being appreciative is so important, and it's so understated in India. You absolutely rightly said that we tend to sort of steer towards the critical side, but while criticism is important, but appreciation also in good measure is important.
If you criticize once, please make sure that you appreciate 5 times.
Absolutely, I think I totally agree with that, because sometimes we only remember to criticize. We forget that we have to also appreciate. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, parenting is a difficult journey, even like as a teacher. I think, when you're dealing with students, it's a very difficult journey.
You
but I mean,
for them.
Absolutely. And I think you're right. I mean, we have to focus on the positive side. Isn't that what we all keep telling each other, even about the pandemic? That focus on the good side. And hope that things are going to get better. Otherwise, we'll just become so negative. And self-love is so important, and that's what we have to also build in our younger generation, because that self-love is what is going to give them the confidence and might actually help keep a lot of mental health issues at bay, which are really now rampant these days because of the increased competition, the pressure, the criticism, and all the exposure that they have to social media. I think it's been such a wonderful conversation, ma'am, chatting with you. I think I'm going back with so many things to think about, to reflect on, and I can say the same for my audience members. And I would really like to thank you from the entire team for taking out the time and joining us. I think it definitely has been a wonderful conversation that we've had today.
Thank you so much, Pratika. I thoroughly enjoyed the session, and my best wishes for the university and all the educational institutes. You are doing a great work.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And a big thank you to all our audience members for joining us. It's all the encouragement that you guys give us on a weekly basis that we are motivated to curate content. We'll see you again next week on next Thursday at 5 p.m. Until then, mask up, everybody stay safe. Thank you very much, ma'am. We hope to chat with you again soon.